And we are live. Welcome back to the Mecca of Banter, Mecca moment today after the 1-1 draw yesterday at City Park between St. Louis and Real Salt Lake. It's your boy Hoove here, tapping in with my man Hen. Hen and I got to go to the game last night. What'd you think, man?
I could have sworn that you were just about to say it's your boy Hen in your intro. Man, it was good. It was so much colder than I thought that it was going
Me
to be.
too, dude.
Paige and I drastically underestimated that weather. Normally, we're like
Yep.
bundled up with hats and scarves and coats, and we just weren't, and so that made it slightly less enjoyable.
Yep.
But I don't know. It was kind of interesting. Obviously, it was opening night, and I could just be biased here. I could be. I think I was just expecting maybe a little bit more. Like I know that there was like a big like tifo with all the like
Mm-hmm.
signs, and it said round two, and it was great. But I even felt like during the game, and maybe it was a product of the game, I felt like some of the supporters section, it was a little quiet in there. It just like I don't know, it just didn't feel like it had the same level of like gumption as
Yeah.
a couple of times last season. I don't know if that was just a second season slump or what, but I don't know. It
Yeah.
was fine. Like it was fine.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that you said, like, it was very much so one of those games that the team never gave us anything really to hold on to as fans and to get excited about and get loud about. So, yeah, we can just dive right into that.
Yeah.
We had Smino as the pregame artist. I went and saw he performed his new song for the first time. That was cool, and like everything around the club, I just love so much, and the
Yeah.
pregame hype and the pregame festivities and the tifo stuff, just all masterfully done from my point of view. But then, the product on the field didn't really display the pyro and fireworks like the pregame festivities did. So 1-1 draw, 0-0 at half. The lineup looked Totland in the right, Berkey at the back, Parker, Nilsson, Markanich. We had a 4-1-3-2, 4-1-3-2. So I don't really know. We had Blom. I was so excited about that lineup.
Yeah.
It was more towards what we'd seen last year. We were letting Lowen kind of sit as the deep lying playmaker, and it just didn't work. The connectivity between Jackson and the forwards and the wing players. I saw a pass map at the end of the game, and I thought that was a very, very telling map, and it really showed that Lowen was the only player looking for deep balls. He was the only player trying to get it to wide players, to Klaus. AZ was not connecting passes very well with anyone, to be truthful, in that 10 role. So it was stagnant. Defense was shaky at moments. I thought Nilsson, I texted in the beginning, very beginning of the
Hmm.
game, 15
Yeah.
minutes or so, thought he was really shaky. He ended up really locking it down and coming into his own. And he even said in his post game, he was so happy he got 90 minutes. We want him to consistently see and get 90 minutes. But then we lost Tim Parker in the 35th to a muscle injury. Early reports sound like it's not going to be that bad. But man, did Josh redeem himself from
Yeah.
Tuesday, because
Yeah.
he stepped in and played so well after getting battered multiple times and having to go through concussion protocol. A lot of people were nervous about him even being able to stay on, but I thought for having to come in the position he did, I thought he was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think he did well. And while I was excited for this lineup when I saw it, I I did not predict this lineup.
Yeah.
I was so surprised to see Thor and Celio in the starting as
Hmm.
like actually playing wide.
Hmm.
And I'll give him his credit. I think in the season preview we talked about Thor, and he was kind of the guy on all of our radar that we were a little confused about. Like we didn't really know where he played or anything like that, and he actually held his own pretty well. Especially in the first half, he was pretty consistently our main outlet. He also seemed to be a little more mobile next to Klaus than Sam
Yep.
was. But I want to double down on the midfield. It we're not trying to even possess the ball.
Yeah.
We look allergic to connecting passes, and it's kind of at every stage of the progression. AZ, I know that like Dobes is huge on AZ, and I'm not saying that I'm not, but he gets himself in unbelievable positions, probably better than any other player on the field for us consistently. But then it's almost like when he gets on the ball, he is the most frantic player that we
Yeah.
have. It almost looks like he's trying to like chop the ball with every single touch he has, and it leads to him dribbling more often than not straight into a defender.
Yeah.
And his combination play isn't there. His final product isn't there. There was even a couple of moments where, especially in the first half, he would get the ball kind of at the top of the box, and like maybe he's seeing something that we're not, obviously like being in the game, but like you're like he's going to pull the trigger for sure, because why wouldn't he? And he
Hmm.
just doesn't. And I just continually am confused by that. And our midfield just had no link of play. And oddly enough, the 35 minutes that he played, Tim Parker, of all people, was the most composed person on the
Yeah.
ball. Several times he just stopped, put his foot on the ball, maybe pulled a move to shake off the forward, and just slowed it down. But the first half especially, like we couldn't connect a 5, 6, 7 yard pass to save our lives.
Yeah.
It was astonishing how off it was. And like you haven't even touched on it yet, but I think part of it is the stop and start nature of the game. I
Yeah.
mean, the referees,
The refereeing was
like,
terrible. It was abysmal.
it was so bad.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to look up this stat yet because I genuinely don't even know where to look. But like I would ballpark for the 90 minutes that we played on the clock. I would ballpark we played probably 51, 50
Mhm.
minutes. Like I mean, the stoppages of the fouls, the like delay of times when the ball's out of bounds. Like I mean, it was insane how stop and start that game was, and I think that built into the frustration that the fans saw during the game as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I read a lot. I was coming into this morning. I wasn't angry. I don't think angry is the right word, and I'm not scared. I don't think we're in a crisis mode. I don't think any of those things are true and need to be said. But reading the players' post match press conferences was very telling to me. Um, things that we do need to take in consideration was that Lowen missed half the preseason. Lowen was
Mm-hmm.
out getting a green card. Nilsson was the same way. Nilsson was trying to stay fit in an athletics hall in Sweden, and he was like, that it just wasn't realistic for me to stay game fit for that. So, um, Lowen did not have a good game, and he was the first person to kind of accept that and say it as it was. But he was also like, look, I feel I'm going to need to get a couple games under my feet before I feel, 100% in my game and fitness level. So everyone around me was questioning why he was coming out of the game. And I was like, well, there's a couple things. It's not his night. You can kind of tell that already. And B, I don't think he's got 90 minutes. We can't just be
No.
losing, especially with Durkin. And I think that guy just has an absolute engine on him. So
Mm-hmm.
I was okay with that. Um, I guess it kind of leads us to the changes that Carnell did make. And you and I were the first two people to be like, this is going to be bad. Nerwinski comes in, slides in as that third center back, and wouldn't you know it, Jake gets spun like a top
Right
on
away.
right away on Chucho's goal, and well finished goal. None of our other center backs get turned like that. Parker
No.
doesn't get turned like that. Yarrow doesn't get turned like that. Nilsson doesn't get turned like that. I don't think he was in the best position, but I think he was in the position that he had to be given the back line and the changes. That was really disappointing, and it's kind of back to we didn't love Jake's performances last year, and seeing him come on to me was just like, oh shoot, I don't feel good about this anymore. And lo and behold, kind of what happened.
Yeah, and I guess like it. I Matt Baker, shout out Matt Baker, had a really good analysis this morning of that goal. And he's the first. He said that a screenshot doesn't tell the full story, and of course, he took a screenshot of exactly
Yep.
where, the positioning was. But then he also attached the video after. And I want to remind you all, I'm a nobody. I play on a rec league co-ed team,
Yep.
but I've played center back a time or two.
Hmm.
And there were just like three separate opportunities in that 2 or 3 second clip that Nerwinski had to not let that happen.
Yeah.
And the thing is that while the MLS isn't always going to be the highest quality, and while you're not going to go up against, your Ronaldos or your Lewandowskis or your Benzemas or anything like that, you're still going to go up against number nines that if you give them the position, they're going to put the ball on net. And that was one of them where it
Yep.
comes down to the split decision of, do I foul him? Do I step in front of him? Do I block his run? And then when he turns me, do I bring him? Like, there's just so many decisions. And I think just like as a center back, you just have to be so much more clinical. And Jake's normally a right back, but he is also a secondary center back. It's one of the reasons why we were comfortable with parting ways with Bartlett, knowing that we had that extra cover with Nowinski there, and Hebert's still, a couple days out. But
Yep.
the the cynic in me is going to say, I hate a 5-back system. And last night was the perfect reason why. Not only did the goal come up from a 5-back system, as soon as we switched to it, we were exposed beyond belief. I mean, Nilsson was getting pulled out to the left. Jake was getting pulled out to the right. Josh, it was like straight ball, straight run, which is like the
Yeah.
lowest form of soccer IQ. That's what was beating us, a straight ball and a straight run. But then also, like, I know that there's going to be people in the chat that are going to be like, but we scored from a 3-5-2. Not really.
No.
Like we scored while we were in a 3-5-2 or a 5-back, whatever you want to call it. But it was, again, a straight ball, straight run. Sam bullies the guy and scores a great goal. But like, there's no fluidity with it, and it does make me nervous, and it made me nervous last night that 60 minutes into a game where, like, let's alter the game plan and switch to this 5-back system. And the only thing that is giving me any bit of perspective today in terms of the Klaus substitution, the Leuven substitution, things that seemingly made no sense, is the fact that we turn right around and play on Tuesday. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that I'm like, okay, if we didn't have that Tuesday game, maybe we do give them 90 minutes, but I just thought it was an insane decision that we're down a goal and we take off Klaus. It makes no sense. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It was odd.
The thing, the Klaus thing to me is interesting because it wasn't his night either. But
Totally.
when you look at a number 9 like João Klaus, he's not gonna do the things that Sam does. He doesn't provide the same attacking threat, and he's dependent on other players to be able to get in, interchange, quick 1-2s, get out, and then be a demon in the box. Sam's gonna dog a man on the back line and beat you with a straight run because that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I was okay with it because he didn't there was nothing indicating that he was growing into the game. There was nothing indicating that we were being able to find him in more effective positions. So at that point, I went to a bar last night and met a bunch of friends after the game, and being the soccer guy, it was just hot on everyone's mind. They were all there watching the game. If you're going to play a pump and dump style of football, and don't get me wrong, there are teams in the Premier League who do just fine with pump and dump. But if you're going to do that, Sam has to be on the field. Zhao's
Well,
not making that run.
there's a world where there is a world where Sam is a better forward for St. Louis City than
Yeah,
Klaus is,
because of how
and
they
it
play.
has nothing. Yeah, it has nothing
Yeah,
to do with their ability, and it's just like that kills me to say,
yeah.
but it's like, ugh,
We
it's
we've
crazy,
played
bro.
we've played 180 minutes now this season, and not one goal has come from tactics or
Hmm.
fluidity or a formation or a lineup. They've come from a set piece in Tim Parker, who's going to get on those every time. It's come from a long ball to Sam, who can hunt guys down, and honestly came from a lucky deflection in the box for Kojima to get his 90th minute winner. So
Hmm.
that's what concerns me, is that we're not seeing the style or the system work like it did last year. The only thing we have to compare this year to is last year. And we've said this on a bunch of different podcasts, but the way that we play was very beneficial to a first year team that didn't have any expectations. Now it's
Hmm.
like, we need to be on the front foot. And you're right, we couldn't hold the ball. I don't solely blame Lewin for that. Blom's not the best distributor of the ball
Hmm.
by any means. Unreal stopper. We saw that again last night. He shut down play after play. Diego Luna was playing more of a central role. They had a
Yep.
really good 1v1 battle, and I thought Blom was fine for that role. I just need him to do more for me with the ball and being able to get it out into transition. Um, there just wasn't much of that, and that my biggest concern is that we're going to be set piece FC. We're going to be relying on low end deliveries into the box. And again, if that's what we have to be, so be it. We just have to play to those strengths,
Yeah.
and that makes me nervous for Klaus.
Yeah.
Because it's just not advantageous for him.
Yeah. It's not going to be his thing. And I think like as we look ahead to Tuesday, I think the lineup that we play with is going to be very fascinating. Obviously, it's going to be dependent on Tim, on how he's feeling, on
Mm-hmm.
if it's just tightness or if he's ready to go again. If not, it's going to be Nilsson and Parker again. But I don't think you can take Totland out of the lineup again, the
No.
second half especially. Also, I want to call out, I forgot if it was Celio or Markanich, and I can't remember which it was. In the second half, um, someone gave the ball away at the halfway line, and it was either Celio or Markanich tracked all the way back and defended the guy in the box. It was like an incredible work rate play, regardless of who it was. Those are guys that were playing the full game. That happened in
Yeah.
like the 80th, like 82nd minute. I think that was the play of the game. Like that
Mm-hmm.
that was so insane to preserve the tie. And I want to give the shout out there. But when you think through Houston, I don't think that we can play with a true two striker system because there's too much space in between Leuven and Blom and the strikers. Like I know that maybe things have changed since the end of last season, but from all we have is that one interview with Leuven last year where he talks about not liking the 10 role. But I'm like, give me Blom and Durkin as a double pivot. Like when Blom picks up the ball, like get it to Durkin short and let Durkin figure out if it's going to go to Leuven or if he's going to ping it long. Durkin had a couple of pings yesterday when he
Yeah, he
came in
did.
for like 10 minutes and it
Mm-hmm.
was great, So I just think winning that battle in the central of the park, it's gonna be so important. And if we don't do it, we're gonna get overrun like we did yesterday. And I think that we're in for a long season if we can't figure that out, or if no one can have the frame of mind to put their foot on the ball and just slow it down. That that's what I can't figure out. Like tough breaks are going to happen and deflections are going to happen and you're going to get turned on a play, whatever. But it's like the frame of mind that literally no one in the team just fucking stopped for a second and like
Yeah.
thought about it. Like it was just insane to me. I don't
And
know.
that I hate to, you don't want to point fingers, but that comes down to the instructions that they were given. To a certain degree, it's not like any of these players can't play in a slow, progressive build-up style team. They're all obviously more suited to what we're doing. That's been the plan from Lutz and Carnell from the jump, but it it had to have been an instruction to a certain degree is to get the ball, look up the field, go, which again is fine if you do it correctly. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
the wide players were set up for success. Klaus obviously wasn't. And I agree about the low end thing. He doesn't have to be the 10 that's in the box all the time. We can
Mm-hmm.
play really more of a 4-5-1 with him
Yeah.
just being the guy that's higher than Blom and Durkin. And he doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily need to be the playmaker at all times. But we're so dependent on him. And when he's not, on his A game, it's gonna show. He was the only
Yeah.
player to find Klaus, to find Pompeo, to find Thor, to find AZ. AZ couldn't find those guys, and he's playing higher up the field. So
Mm-mm.
I'm with you, and I hope we're not just building so much dependence on him that we can't operate without him. But it's looking shaky. No goals from really open play. Open play loosely is kind of what I'm getting at because that the Sam goal is awesome.
It
At
was
the end
great.
of the day,
Electric.
the positives that I can pull are that's always going to be an option. Is to just the joke with Pat Mahomes is like, fuck it, Tyreek's down there somewhere. Like, that's exactly what I said to my friends. I was like, fuck it, Nick Sam's down there somewhere. Just pump it, see if he can beat the guy. And he
Yeah.
does. And he does that really well. And I think that's a huge strength of his. So huge shout out to him and his ability to finish. Didn't he? I was sitting there watching it. It was right in front of me. And I was like, Indy's open, Indy's open, Indy's open. And then he tucks it. And then we're, limbs. That was awesome. And you can't talk badly about the performance without saying Jake Nowinski had a goal-saving, clearance on the line at the very end of the
Hmm.
game. He was in the right position at the right time there, and kudos to that. End of the day, I think this is a big point, and this is ultimately what a lot of the players said too. They were like, "Not our best night. We know it wasn't our best night, but with such a long season." And another thing that I'm slowly working into in my MLS fandom is understanding who are the good teams and who are not. I think
Yeah.
Salt Lake was quality. I think they really stifled everything that we wanted to do going forward. Although, albeit maybe it not been that difficult for them considering it was
Hmm.
so clustered from us, but they looked like they could have gotten in and out of there with a 1-0 win, and
Totally.
it would have been smash and grab, no problem, and it looked pretty comfortable for the most part. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, Berkey didn't have a ton to do. A couple big
Hmm.
saves, the ones that you'd expect them to make. Um, so it was not as exciting. We come back to the crowd not being a little flat. The performance was flat. The most dangerous point of the game was after Sam scores that goal. We actually looked
Yeah.
like we had some decent offensive chances from there, and where we're getting balls in behind. And if that's the style we're going to play, we just play it. So that's what I want to see moving forward is more connectivity between the top and the midfield.
Hmm.
Getting those guys the ball and then being able to build on it instead of, getting Thor the ball and having him dribble into a wall or AZ the same. Just not a ton of fluidity, which is a bummer because of so many times last year. It was like it looked effortless the way that we were
Yeah.
able to build up and hit so quickly on transition.
Yeah. We had like one or two progressions of play in the second half that you could tell was like almost like a passing pattern. Was
Yeah.
like here, back, through, whatever. Um, but outside of that, like there's just not a lot of offense to go off of. I'm curious your thoughts, like as we look ahead to next week. Obviously, we have the Tuesday, Saturday slots next week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think needs to change? Is anyone out there like solidifying their start in the starting 11? Like thinking through Tuesday, what are your thoughts?
You talk about this in hockey sometimes, but we're in a position right now where you ride the hot hand, and I think Sam's the hot hand.
Mm,
And it absolutely murders me to think of a team that isn't centered around Lowen and Klaus. Um, but the conversation at the pub post match was, how are you going to sit Sam? How, like, the way that he's just been the most dangerous player for us. I do expect to see him Tuesday, maybe even just more often, maybe even Saturday too. He's one of those guys, younger, who's ready to play 90 minutes every week, multiple times a week, and he's got that hunger and that desire. So I think he's locked himself in as being one of the more key players going forward.
hmm.
I'm with you on Totland.
Yeah.
He he was the best player on the pitch again. His technical ability is second to none that we have on the team. Maybe Lowen, who when he's in form. Um, I don't think we should see a world where he doesn't play uh,
Yeah.
about every game. Obviously, long season, you need rotation. You can't let him get hurt. I'm so giddy about his ability to play and what he brings to the table. Now you just have to build on it because he was able to get out of tight spots. His effectiveness to move the ball forward once he wins a tackle and get back on the front foot was so evident. It just
Hmm.
nothing else, came with that, and that's not the right back's job. The right back job should not be the guy who, is starting to build all the passing plays. But those are the two for me. Like Lowen said, you just give the guy a run of games. I have zero doubts about him. I have zero doubts about his ability and what he can contribute. So we're gonna be fine there. I'm taking solace in how good the center backs have been.
Yeah.
Despite our back line in itself being a little messy here and there, that's maybe nerves, that's maybe first couple of game jitters, no shutouts, but individually, performance-wise, I've been really, really happy with them. And we hate five at the back. But if we're going to have five at the back, Yarrow, Nilsson, and Parker, I'm going to feel better about. And again, Nerwinski's not a natural center back. That's not his role. I'm not going to slate the guy, for this entire podcast. But with those three and the new wing backs that we kind of have that are those true five-back wingers that can win a tackle and then get up, I don't hate it as much as I did with Spurs and Conte and Mourinho and the terrorist football we kind of come to know. So, knowing that is in place, we're just not at a crisis moment, but it is worrying. It's
Yeah,
concerning.
yeah. I want to see a different performance on Tuesday, and then again on Saturday. Tuesday, I could see quite a bit of rotation.
Yeah, too.
I could see Nowinski starting.
Yep.
I could see Dyer starting.
I don't know why we haven't
Indy
seen
start.
Dyer yet either, by the way.
I thought he was going to get a shot last
Me
night.
too.
Especially with Markanich putting in, 2 90-minute shifts in a couple of days. I could see that happening unless he's not ready, he's not ready to go and we're just riding Markanich. But I could see Tuesday rotating a little bit more, especially with coming off of the win, midweek with them already. That could be what I'll see. And I honestly, I think Celio and Thor did more than enough to earn their starting spot again. So I think you're really looking at a couple of positions that I would swap out performance wise, but then most of the guys lock down their spots again. It's just, it does go back to coaching and goes back to tactics of if we can't hold on to the ball, at some point you do have to look at Carnell and say what's the game plan here?
Yeah. Yep. So the lads are back in action on Tuesday, and as we've seen, obviously you're going to take the first game no matter what you do seriously. I think we're going to take this competition seriously. This is not the Leagues Cup. This is not a cash grab. This is not the, what we kind of saw from how we took the last couple of cups seriously, or how they did. But I think this one is, someone online was like, when do you really know? When can you guarantee that we're going to be back in this conversation? I think we truly should take every opportunity to get as far as we can here. And then again, all of it just boils down to being more experienced for the boys, and those moments are invaluable. So I do expect to see a pretty strong lineup still. Our depth is better than it's ever been. I think we now actually have. I feel okay when we do rotate. And we would rotate certain times last year, and certain players would play. It's like, all right, well, it's a wash. We're out on this one. So
yeah,
I like the rotation. 4 matches in 2 weeks is a lot for anybody. So it's important to carry those expectations and make sure that we're not, beating the drums when whoever doesn't play. But I do expect them to take it seriously, and I expect them to take it to Houston and come away with something there. It's going to be tough, but I'd like to see us go to the next round.
Same. Even a tie would be huge.
Yeah, a tie. We're going in up 2-1. The away goals are in place in this competition, so if we were to lose 1-0, we would be knocked out based on the Houston's goal that they scored at City Park. So a couple
as
of
football
tidbits.
should be.
As football should be. It adds a level of jeopardy to force the away team to attack. If only there was a rule in Europe for that. Who knows? But yeah, any other thoughts?
No, I just want to see a different performance on Tuesday, and that's what we need.
Rejuvenated. I want to see some more runs. I want to see a little bit harder play. A lot of it. You don't want to throw things on the ref, but it was so bad. It was so poorly officiated that you're right. The stop-start nature is hard as a player to get back into, to really dig in and want to give full 90 when, the ball stopped every 5 minutes. So
yeah.
Hopefully we get new refs too. Hopefully they can sign the CBA that they've got and get the. I can't even believe we're begging for the old refs back already because they were so bad last year. But looking forward to it. Back in action Tuesday and then again Saturday. The hits don't stop rolling, brother. We're
Absolutely.
alive.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, man.